When you think of Kirby, there are probably a few things that come to mind. The colorful cast of heroes and anti-heroes, some fun mini-games, and probably most importantly, Kirby's ability to copy his enemy's power. It's funny then, to see that his 1992 debut on the Game Boy doesn't have any of these trademark qualities. Just looking at this game should be able to tell you that Kirby definitely had a humble beginning here on the Game Boy, however that doesn't necessarily make the game bad. The story here is pretty simple. King Dedede has stolen all of the food in Dreamland for himself, and you're on a quest to defeat him and his monsters through the game's 5 stages. There are no bizarre galactic entities at play here, another Kirby trademark. It's just straightforward and simple. In fact, I believe this is the only Kirby game where King Dedede is actually the main villain, though I haven't played them all, so don't quote me on that. Although it seems that this game may be missing a lot going back to it after playing later entries, one element is still present here, and that's the fact that just like a Kirby brand vacuum cleaner, Kirby can inhale enemies and spit them back out at other enemies, and as you could imagine, the enemies of Dreamland don't appreciate being spit on, as I don't think anyone would. In addition to inhaling enemies, Kirby can also inhale the air around him to fly, and this is primarily what makes the game so easy, because you can just fly over a lot of the obstacles. Now some parts are designed so that you can't just skip over them, so you definitely just can't hold up on the D-pad and expect to finish the game doing nothing else. There are also a few power-ups scattered about, including the Spicy Curry, which lets you spit fire for a period of time, and the Air Leaf, which briefly turns the game into a shooter. As I said earlier, this game is only 5 stages long, and the stages are pretty short, meaning that you should be able to easily finish this game in less than half an hour. As a kid, I actually found this to be perfect, as we used to live in the middle of nowhere, so getting anywhere would take at least a half-hour-long car ride, meaning I would often bring this game with me, and could usually beat it through the duration of the ride. I really do like the art style here. Everything is small enough that it can fit comfortably within the small screen of the Game Boy, but it's also large enough to have a nice level of detail to it. The music is also classic, but I do prefer some of the later renditions of these iconic tracks used in future titles. Like most first entries of popular game franchises, Kirby's is very basic, but I would say this is even more of a bare-bones game than most, which makes it hard for me to recommend. There is an extra mode playable by entering a code at the title screen, but it's just the same levels again with more obnoxious enemy placement and behavior. If you're well versed in later Kirby games, or the platformer genre in general, then I'd say that you can just skip this game, as it really won't have much to offer unless you really want to experience Kirby's first adventure for yourself. However, I would say this is probably the most accessible game if you're someone who's new to the genre and want to ease yourself into playing platformers. Or if you have kids who are just starting to play video games, then Kirby's Dream Land becomes an easy recommendation. This should be a pretty easy game to find. For this review, I played it on Kirby's Dream Collection for the Wii, but the original cartridge is pretty inexpensive, and it's also available for download on the 3DS Virtual Console. Whether you like this game or not, you have to admit, it's pretty cool to see how far Kirby has come in the gaming landscape, and yet, we still don't have a full 3D Kirby platformer. Maybe someday.